Okay, so let's start. Before we start, I want to ask you a question, so I'll try to interact with you a little bit. So who in here has ever played on the lottery, scratches, or anything? Just raise your hand. Nice, almost everyone. Now forget about it. Let's just move on. It's okay. So my name is Renato. I'm going to talk with you a little bit about the creative developer, a bit of cognitive biases, and etc. Let's go there. So I want to show a little thing before. There is a sorry, there is a bug in my presentation. It was supposed to look better than that. The brain, right? That's such a powerful thing. Let me just observe it for a second now. You can see it working already? Nice. Oh, yeah, I saw that. Holding your mouth, yeah. Yeah, it's really good. So before we start, I want to tell you a few stories, really short things, just an introduction. So I split it in a few acts, a few things that I could observe from my daily life as a developer. I hopefully think so. So I don't know if you guys saw that, like in the past, like this happened like a couple of years back. There was this developer, and they created this amazing telephone picker. That's like, for me, one of the most beautiful solutions I ever saw. It's really good. You can't see even like the amount of nodes anymore, like in the Chrome. How powerful is the Chrome developer tools, right? To be able like to even print like so many nodes like that, it's crazy. And of course, you can always evolve your solution. So in this case, well, you can just drag left and right. But well, I guess you need a good mouse with good DPI to make this work. Have really good steady hands, doctor hands. So let's make something a bit more useful now. So I hope you have time to put this one to work. But there is just one problem with this one. What happened if you passed your number because you're bored clicking it, right? So let's make a better solution now. Let's get it now with. We like to do this kind of smart sorting, bubble sorting, etc. So let's make it like really amazing. But of course, like when you see a solution like that, you think like, oh, this must be some children doing it, and etc. But of course, we are looking to a really small scale. And usually how I see those people are like someone completely disconnected from the internet, not even checking like Stack Overflow or anything like that. And sometimes we are like that. Not in this example, of course, but we do some silly solutions all the time. But yeah, let's just move on from this one. I'll give you some reflection time to the things you've done in the past. Sometimes we just need to do like a simple task, like a telephone picker, right? And then the task is really simple. You need a bolt, you need a screw, like, that's pretty simple. Then you start looking to your options, everything that people has done in the Stack Overflow, of course, because that's how I programmed the whole day. And then usually how you end up is something like this. No solution, only the screws, nothing happening there. Then it's a bit sad, because what usually happens is that you get like into this trap, right? Because you have to solve a really simple solution. Like, can you give me a formula which solves the next number for this sequence? Many people can just tell me a simple logic for the sequence. Although, how it works, it can be just like a power of 2. Yeah, looks good. You could make it like a static progressive, just going like +2, +4, +8, +16. Could also be a solution. You can start getting a bit more complex. Like, okay, so I'm going to put like a function here. I'm going to make it more dynamic. You can make it even more complicated for yourself. But in the end, we don't even know if that sequence, for instance, would accept negative numbers from the beginning. We don't know like what could happen. So the first solution wouldn't apply for like negative numbers. Meanwhile, the second one, it's completely static and also going just forward. So what you can do in this case, for instance, is try to disprove your solution. So you get that solution, and then you try to apply it to disprove. A disclaimer, I stole this slide from another speaker, Joshua Tyson, so you should watch his talk. It's better than mine. So just try to disprove it, and then the techniques, like try to disprove it like with 3 tries or something like that. And of course, it's 2018, so you have to check if it scales, because it's the new internet. And there is one last thing that happens on my daily life as well, which for me is the bear. And it's the bear because it's big, and it's a problem. So whoever ever had to review a PR which has like 100 files and a few thousand lines of change. So how do you cope with it? Like how? Oh, you blame your colleague. Yeah. That's the one, right? You told me about. Yeah, this inspired on you. Okay. So how do you cope with it? Like is any developer actually able to review such a big code base and actually understand the whole complexity of it and actually get things done there, like do a proper review? Luckily, that's the only part which I have a really solution for that, which is just merge. Like, why? Just merge it. Like, why are you going to spend our time? Just see it break in production, then go for fixing the bugs, right? It's good. So what is this all introduction about? We are going to talk here about heuristics and cognitive biases. There is a really cool definition, which I think it's something we can relate to. So there are mental shortcuts that usually involve focusing on one aspect of the problem and forgetting all the rest. As an example, I'm going to show you an image. Pay a lot of attention. You're going to have 3 seconds, and then I'm going to make a question. Okay? Yes. Okay. Who saw the young lady? Nice. Who saw the old lady? Cool. Who was able to see both? You already knew the image before. I'm pretty sure about that. So basically, that's a cognitive bias, right? So your brain has to figure it out really fast. You need some results. You need to get this image which is coming in front of you and get something to your head which makes some sense. And that's all about cognitive biases. This is happening all the time during our lives. And then we have a lot of cognitive biases. I'm going to talk about a few of them. So optimism and loss aversion, framing, anchoring effect, availability. But there are so many more, like substitution, sunk cost. And this list goes on, and goes on. It's a really fun list. It never finishes. Yeah, you saw the little guy here, IKEA effect. It's actually now studied. It's really fun. It's the fact that a manufacturer can actually make you build their furniture and you still feel happy about it. What? And you post on your Instagram, like, yeah, hard work tonight. Then it's like super happy. Like, that's a studied fact. And then they save money with it. You get out happy. So, win-win situation, right? And for oftentimes, they actually ask the same price as normal competitors which are going there and then making it ready for you. So, well, happens. But this list just goes on and on. Those are actually the studied ones, usually part of like a PhD research or something like that. Which then I have another small question for you. Do you know what is the purpose of thinking? Why our brain spends this energy? Anyone wants to give it a try? No?
Survival, I guess.
Survival, maybe. Not for our talk, but survival probably. Anyone else? Yeah?
Predict the future.
Wow, that would be amazing. No. Well, for our purpose here, thinking is about stopping to think. Your brain uses a lot of energy. For the way we think already, like they research that it's about 25% of our energy. So imagine if you had to think all the time. You would simply like burn, that there is no way. So the purpose of thinking is actually to stop thinking. So your brain has to figure that out really fast. And that's what happened with like the optical illusion. You need to have an answer really fast. You have to make decisions really fast in a conversation. Everything that is happening around you, you have to draw conclusions in like speed of light. And that's why thinking is about stop thinking. Your brain's like, oh my God, I have to do it. Okay, done. Relax now. So that's also the sense of accomplishment when we do something nice and then you finish something. It's all about like, okay, my task is done. So then I want to come back to one of the effects. But before, I have a bet. You notice that I like those things, right? So I have a really good bet. So we are around, I think, 60, 70 people here. So let's say the bet is you have 99.999s of chance of losing €5 to me in this bet, but you have that 0.0001 to get €350. Who wants to join? Well, what's happening? Nice, just give me the €5. Well, that's a really classic example of the framing effect, because in the beginning of the talk, I asked you, have you played on lottery, scratches, or things like that? That's basically how we present the same information in 2 different ways. The fact that you can buy a scratch for €5, have a chance of winning €100, your brain understands like, okay, I have a chance of winning. I'm buying an entrance to this winning contest. It's amazing. And then you understand it as something nice. But then if I come with you with the actual information, like how scientists would do it, then you have basically almost 0% of chance of winning. And you're going to spend the €5, but instead of giving it to me up front, you're giving it to me later. That's exactly the framing effect. It's all about how you present this information. Another example. So let's say we have two nice hosting companies. One is offering you 99% of the time online, and the other is offering you 90 hours offline. Which one are you going to choose? Option A, raise your hands. Yeah. Option B. And of course, a lot of people who need some calculator now to make sure which one they want to have. So when I see something like, yeah, I'm not getting 90 hours offline, you nuts? Of course not. But then if we start checking to those numbers, of course, so 100% of availability means 0 hours offline, 99% means actually 87.6 hours non-available, which is our case there. So depending on how you present the information, it can cause so much trouble. So that's why they present the number like 99%. It looks like a great, good number. What's the next number which comes after 99? It's 100. What? We are talking about units. Oh, the microphone made a weird voice. Okay, so in this case, of course, we could have chosen for the 99% one, so a few of you were right. Just to give an example of how those SLAs work, this was GitHub last month's availability. It's 99.85% available. It's less than 12 hours in a year. And I want to ask you a question, like, who got so frustrated when GitHub is like hanging around like 1-2 hours in your day? It's crazy. Like the tool is just like 24/7 all over the world. And then I bet you're like telling to people, no, I can't review anything. I can't push my code. My day is lost now. Oh my God. And that's like 12 hours in a year. And you remember that. This is actually one real SLA from a Dutch hosting company. I'm not going to give the name. But they actually offer 99% network availability. How crazy is that you are putting your software there to be unavailable, potentially unavailable for 90 hours per year? Yeah, and this happens. And if you don't really look into the numbers, and if you really don't process like what it means, you can get into these problems. Which then let's go to another example, like anchoring effect. Anchoring effect is like how you start the base point of a conversation or negotiation or anything like that. So for instance, let's say we are going to here negotiate a rent. So if I come to you and say, oh, my rent is €500. So that puts so much information right in your brain. So your brain is now calculating hundreds as units. And you're like, oh, if I negotiate that to like €550, yeah, I'm going to be really good with it. But actually, why are you not negotiating 499? Like, because the unit stops making sense now. And that's the same thing with like the 99% and 100. When someone puts like 99%, they want to give you the impression that's the closest thing to 100%. Meanwhile, we know that we could have like many cases after the 9, which actually provides a good availability. And in this case, let's say you are working and then you have like to estimate something, there comes like this nice PO to you and say, oh, do you take like 3 days to make this feature? That's already a big problem, because what's happening now is that like your brain's trying to understand, oh, what can I achieve in 3 days? 3 days for me is like 24 hours of work. Not really. It's probably like 5 hours per day because I have to chat with my colleagues. I have to read stuff. I have to do everything else. And then you start like processing around that information when you should be actually looking to the problem. And you can be influenced like that without even realizing. And it happens just all the time. Another classic example is like, it's just a button, no worries. You can do that. Just put a checkbox there. It's going to work. Actually, I had an access to a really nice PO who once asked me to create just a button. And then after like hours and hours in the conversation, I figured out how the button looks like. It's a really good button. It does like everything that I need. So generate orders, send email to the customer, invoice and process payment, and finish. That's basically how people can make things simplistic, right? Like their heads like, oh, just make a button. Let's create Google. What is that? 2 buttons. Come on. It's like search. I'm lucky. Perfect. I can do that. Which also brings us to availability heuristics, which is one which is I really like as well, because this is more how your brain uses its own experience to create something, to think about the next things happening. So it's usually resuming a lot, oh, I know how to do that. So if you have done that button before, if you have experience with e-commerce, if you have experience with X, Y, or Z, you are actually able to go and then, oh, I know how to do that. But of course, that's a problem, because when you do that, it's a mental shortcut. You're not going to be able to see the differences which are happening between solution A and solution B that it is 10 years ago. And of course, yeah, how can you make that? I don't know. But one of the things like, oh, yeah, I've really done it before. It should be easy. And we are always making it simple. Our brain is always transforming things from complex to simple all the time. This is also how availability heuristic is also responsible for like prejudice and other things in our lives. Because, well, you see certain people, you see certain behavior, and then you tend like to create this prejudice and like associate this behavior from other ones to someone that you just met. And of course, it's not a nice thing to do, but that's our brain again, doing nasty things. One of the things which comes really as highlight point for the availability one is like, if you can think of it, it must be really important. So when we are talking about like this e-commerce solution that we want to create to this button, like in your past experience, you remember the worst part was, I don't know, creating the shopping cart. There were so many problems, sessions, vulnerability, and etc. And that's where you're going to put the great part of your new estimation for your new project, because you remember that was the critical part, while you're forgetting all the business rules which are coming with the new solution that you have now to do, which is really, really closely to substitution. It's also the idea that you can replace a complex problem with a simple problem. So like in this case, let's just take puberty, make as a button. Sounds really easy. That's something that, yeah, again, just replacing a complex thing to something really, really, really easy. Before we as developers, we have like, what you see is what you get, right? The psychologists, they have something which is really similar. It's like, what you see is all there is. What is that? Because imagine that you have like to understand this new solution you have to build, right? And then you have to come, oh, okay, so I know that the shopping cart was a problem. I know this other part was really easy. I know that. So then what you get is actually a bunch of bad estimations. You focus more like on the benefits, on what's happening, instead of trying to understand what are the caveats there. And of course, you ignore the risks. And why this happens? It's really simple because, well, you can only consider the things that you know. You cannot really understand, like, I don't know certain things, so how can I come there? Of course, if we start thinking about those things, we can see the technology industry is changing, right? When we talk about estimations, a lot of people are using like the t-shirt size or story points. This is all about trying to make your brain disconnect from those usual ways like hours, days, size of the features. You see nowadays domain exploration sessions, which this cool guy here, Luis, and our colleagues at Usability are doing now. It's all about disconnecting you from what you know. And then you put more people there, you start exploring this whole thing. It's all about breaking our brain down from the usual way to do things. And of course, what you see is all there is. We get back to this one, is really famous. It's actually when you can't give up. Because, well, who wants to give up, right? Our brain's meant to succeed. You want to achieve something, you want to accomplish something. So then what you see, what happens in this case, like many people investing a lot of time in something, like you started this new feature, and then you are like deep into it, you made like loads of classes, loads of complex stuff, and you're insisting on it even though you're stepping into problems in your solution all over. And then, oh, another problem. Oh, another problem. I can't make it work. Instead of giving up that and starting fresh, we tend to stick with that solution, which in many cases, a colleague sits next to you, oh, why didn't you do like that? And they're like, oh, damn it. I could have done with like a really simple solution. And that's our inability of giving up. And that's really hard. This is happening every day. Like you're insisting like in having that car which is breaking over and over. You have that bike which you're really proud, your 20 euros bike. And you're like, yes, I'm not giving up with it. I've put so much effort. I've changed the tires. I've looped my chains. I'm keeping it. And then you never give up because you are attached to it. You don't want to give up. And then, yeah, the feature that I just talked. And then this is also really famous for like whole startups, like the whole startup scene, right? We see startups like breaking down like every day. It's crazy. And because they are insisting the approach they first started, they can't give up. And your losses are just like exponentially going up. It's like, oh, it's not working here. Oh no, but if we get more money and then we add this new feature, it goes up. Wait, why are you doing that? Like maybe you have already proven it's not working. So then you come back like to, again, trying to make your brain not see like that, so people create like lean startup and a lot of other processes. So what I want you to maybe understand is like all those things some people are creating, like those techniques on how to explore your domain, how to make your things easier to estimate, how to organize your company, how to succeed and fail fast. That's something we listen a lot. And all the reasons behind that is because we have to go out from our normal way of thinking. It's just not healthy for what we want to achieve. It's our brain working against us. And it's completely crazy. So after I started seeing all those biases, I was like, oh my God, is it me, or like, do I have any control over my life? Like, because if I start observing my human interactions, what's happening with my colleagues and etc., and every now and then I have like a click. I said, damn it, they just anchored me in this new in this conversation, because they started like putting some information, and then you start from there building up why you should have stopped there and came back. I got a lot of inspiration from those books to make this talk. One of them is How We Got to Now, 6 Innovations which changed the world literally. And there are 6 inventions. I want to give an example of one, because I really want you to read this book. So basically how sand is related to the growth of the superpopulations. The context is, before, in the past, centuries ago, populations in cities, they couldn't grow up after a certain amount of number, like 20,000, 30,000, something like that. All the ancient civilizations had this trouble with, like, when you put more than 20,000 people in a place, they start to die. And then how we came to make the superpopulations nowadays, like 20 million people, how it's related with sand and superpopulation. Can someone try to see what's happening? No? Yeah. It's something that it creates out of sand. I'll give a tip. Glass. How glass is related to the growth of the population. Not necessarily, but okay, let's grow up in this story. So what happened in the past is that with this amount of people in the same place, the water was getting super polluted, because of course we didn't understand the concept of waste, bacteria, and etc. So people were throwing their waste in the water, the same water that you drink, that you cook, that you do everything. So what happens, like from the glass, we were able to make like telescopes to look outside the Earth, which then another invention came afterwards, which inverted the lenses, putting two together, so you have the microscope. And then after that, you were able like to look into the water and see there was a bunch of bacteria, worms, like all sorts of crazy things that you never knew existed. Because imagine you being centuries ago, looking at the water, there's nothing there, it's just water. But now looking closely, you see there's way more life than we actually know. And that's one of the inventions. Of course, this is like a 30 seconds version of it, but they explain on how each of the inventions coming after each other, like who was the person who created this first one, and how they progressed to a new invention, and etc. And they start tracing with things that happened in humanity, like growing up, super cities. So those are 6 inventions. It's a really nice book. And the second one is Thinking Fast and Slow. This author, Daniel Kahneman, he's really, really famous. He writes books about psychology, but in a way that everyone can understand. Maybe if you are really deep into psychology and etc., you can actually read other books, but this one is like perfect introduction. I really recommend it to everyone that I know. Like, it's amazing. And it explains all those biases that we just saw, explains even more, and then a certain life situations that we are put on, which is great. And then I want to show you a cliche video. There is already a hint in the screen about what this video is going to be about, right? So for the ones who already attended to this talk, you're not allowed to participate. And I'm going to ask questions afterwards. You can only answer them if you get the first question right. Okay? So pay a lot of attention. All the instructions are in the video. It's cliche, huh? Okay, so I heard some laughs. How many passes?
I don't know.
That's why you laughed. See? Hook. Okay, how many passes? 16? You got 15? Someone got 17, 14? No, you guys are really accurate. Amazing. 16 passes. Perfect. What else did you see? Of course. What else did you see? You were laughing. Oh, no, you can't answer. Someone who counted 16. What else did you see? A gorilla. Nice. Okay, I can see a gorilla here as well. It's good. Ah, okay. Anyone else realize that? Anyone else realize the curtains changed colors? Huh. See, it's cliche, but I gotcha. There's more. The monkey? Yeah, I would have excluded it. I already knew you were going to see it. But the curtains changed color. Anything else? What? No. But there's another fact here. Everyone missed this one. There is one fewer person. Yeah, someone left. So we have now 2 in black and 3 in white. So they used the fact the gorilla is black and exchanged with someone who was wearing black. And then you didn't realize that. So this move had 3 concurrent things happening at the same time. So it illustrates really well how our brain works, right? It's the fact that you can't really pay attention to everything. So you are in this conversation, someone said something which triggers you or gets you like into another level. All the rest is like blind to you right now. Someone can be screaming on the other side. Something else can be happening. The information that you are listening is going to be partial. And the message behind that is like you are blind to your blindness. And that's, you need to process that for a second. Like, what is it being blind to your blindness? It's like, oh my God, I can't really see what I can't see, but it sounds a bit like recursive. But it's simply like that. Like, to take this phrase with you after the talk and try to put it in your head. What is it being blind to your blindness? And let's see what you can reflect upon that later. The talk's almost in the end. I want to give a few things that I think are really nice for, not just about that, but like in your whole career and your whole life in general. One of the things that I really take in my life is having eclectic interest. Because what happens when you start broadening your knowledge and etc. So let's say you're really affectionate, like, I don't know, to bikes, to motorcycles, to cars or something like that. There's a lot of engineering there, right? And then sometimes you can just like bring up solutions from how things work there to how things are going to work in your software. And vice versa, like you see sometimes like you have a relationship with someone and then sometimes you bring this programming mindset to your relationship. Then you say, no, we can organize this like this and that. And the person's like, oh, yeah, we can do like this. And at the same time, they give input because they have a completely different career, completely different way of thinking. So if you try to expand it by yourself, you can get like so much further. So instead of only using your favorite operating system, like, oh, I only use macOS, try a bit on Linux, check what Windows is doing. And then try to expand. Instead of doing only PHP, do more JavaScript, do more Java, do like functional programming nowadays, because that's the hype. So just try to expand it. It's amazing. Like sometimes you just like get those insights from nothing, and those insights from nothing. It's a good definition of creativity as well. It's when your cognitive system works exceptionally well. It's like your brain is so focused, so like willing to finish that task, that like you bring all those things that you knew before, all those insights that you had in the past of your life, and that's for me like one really good definition of what creativity is. And I'm not willing to take questions, but I want to have contributions because, well, I know nothing about it. So after watching what you watched, do you see yourself in those situations? Do you want to share a moment that happened in your week, in your month? Like, oh yeah, someone influenced me and I was completely blind to it, or something that just happened in your head right now? Anyone wants to share something? Can be about casino as well. It's okay. Come on, I usually have a lot of cool stories. Go, go. You.
I told you the last time.
Yes, that's why I pointed to you.
I'm trying to think of what I said that time, but there's nothing coming to mind.
Oh. Anyone wants to share something, or we can just move on? Yep. Okay. So we are going to finish a bit early without our debating session, philosophical session. I'm going to talk a bit about myself. I didn't do in the introduction. So I'm Renato. I currently work for Usabila, a voice of customer client. So what we do, we collect feedback from emails, from websites, and etc. If you have seen that little feedback button, which is on the right side of many websites, that's usually Usabila, not in every case. I help organize PHP Amersfoort and also Zen Certified Engineer Study Group. So if you're looking to be a PHP certified person, you just come there, and then we have like 2,000 questions or so, and then a debate upon them. So it's really nice to get the certification. Some links you can visit later. If you find some interesting, any article, any cool thing about cognitive biases and creativity with developers and etc., I'm willing to read it. So just tweet it to me or something like that. So you don't say there is any code in this presentation. There is some code now. Proper HTML. So yeah, it's a bit of. I really like this whole thing about studying different things. So I had this time in my career that I really wanted to make like a lot of certifications and etc. So I did like PHP certifications, Linux certifications, and I started like trying to unite those things. That's stuff I want to come up later. I already talked some here, but I want to create this Linux talk for PHP developers, showing some tricks on how you can optimize your life. You can use your Mac, of course, because Mac has this bash, so you can enjoy it. And Windows has now Ubuntu on it, so everyone can try to do it. And that's it. Thank you a lot.